Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and welcome to episode 50 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days. We're turning the corner. We're in the home stretch. We just got a whole bunch of podcasts to record and a handful of movies to watch. Before we talk about today's movie, Coupled Up for Christmas, let's talk about our good friends over at Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, your headquarters, your home, your haven for comics, graphic novels, gaming, movies, music, and more. Third Eye Comics, you can find them at one of many, I think it's 9 stores in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Or, of course, you can visit them online at shop.thirdeyecomics.com. You can go there, you can browse around, you can find something cool. They'll mail it to you. I mean, they're not just going to take your money. They will mail you the item. I'm not even joking. They're not scam artists. No, never. They will mail you what you purchase. It's pretty amazing, honestly. So you find something, you pay for it, they mail it to you, then you have it, and it's just a wonderful circle of commerce. So if this interests you, please check out my friends over at shop.thirdeyecomics.com. Today's movie is Coupled Up for Christmas. We open on shots of a snowy town. Of course we do. We focus on a lady sketching a nearby charity bell-ringing Santa character. The woman sketching is our main character, Tiffany. Our other main character, Peter, walks up and notices the sketch. He says it's very good. He tries to tell her something, but she says she's not interested. She's with someone, implying that he's just trying to hit on her. He says, no, I am too, but I'm actually trying to tell you that you have my luggage bag. It looks like we swapped luggages when we were getting off I think it's a bus station, but I'm not sure. It says when we got off, we accidentally swapped luggages. And then she realizes that, and they swap bags back, and then they go their separate ways. But then Tiffany's sister Camille arrives. She is also arriving home for Christmas. Anyway, Tiffany mentioned she heard some guy named Brett is also in town. This seems like a big deal to Tiffany. She then mentions that Brett wrote her a letter, so she's finally going to tell him that she's in love with him, or rather, still in love with him. See, they used to date, but that was 5 years ago. Okay, that's incorrect. They weren't dating 5 years ago. Let me tell you the breakdown of the story of Brett and Tiffany. So Brett had a big crush on her, I think, when they were in teenage years. And so they're in their early to mid 20s now. So in their teenage years, they grew up, they were best friends. And then as they got older, he had feelings for her. She really didn't have feelings for him. It didn't work out. Eventually she went to college. He may have gone to college, but he also enlisted in the Peace Corps. So he's been out of town for a number of years. So she's been coming back home for Christmas every year, but Brett has been away. But this is the first time that he's been going to be in town when she's in town. And she's thinking, finally, I've built this up in my head for all these years. I made a mistake. We should be together, and I'm going to tell him I want to be with him. Her sister is like, whoa. You don't even know him anymore. This seems like a drastic stance to take, considering you haven't talked to him in years. And she's like, yeah, but he wrote me a letter while he was in the Peace Corps. And it doesn't sound like it was a big romantic letter. It was just a letter like, hey, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I'm here. This is what's going on in my life. But now Tiffany is holding on to this letter as some sort of sign of potential romantic reunion. Her sister thinks this all sounds like a bad idea. He's almost certainly over you by now. Tiffany counters, if that's the case, then why did he not come home for Christmas the prior years? And Camille, the sister, says, probably because he's been enlisted in the Peace Corps and he hasn't been able to. Tiffany ignores this. She says, I'm finally ready to give us a second chance. Then their dad arrives to pick them up. They arrive at the house and find out their mom is in charge of this year's snowball committee, which puts on a big annual snowball event, I guess. So This is the weird thing. So at the house, it's not just her family staying there. It's like a cabin. And I don't know if they're renting it or if they own it. But Brett's family is also staying there. So that gives even more weight to the fact that Brett's finally in town. So in this one big cabin, it's Tiffany's family, which is her mom, her dad, her sister Camille, and herself, and Brett's family, which is his mom and his dad, and, well, Brett. And also apparently this year, her mom has been put in charge of some big event, and so her character arc in this movie is to freak out that she always has more work to do and keep enlisting people to help her do work. In fact, when they first get home, their mom says, "I'm going to need you guys to help chip in because I have a lot of work to do to get this snowball off the ground." And it's called a snowball, so the first word is snow, the second word is ball, as in a dance. And you get it, snowball. If I had a memory or good notes, I could go back and figure out how many times I've had movies feature something called the snowball. Just then out walks Brett, or as Tiffany calls him, Goose. This is some sort of pet nickname that she has for him, as like when they were kids. I forget why. Don't worry, we're never going to have to know it. And if I had remembered, I wouldn't even have told you about it. Anyway, Brett and Tiffany warmly greet each other. Brett says he has so much he wants to tell Tiffany. Just then a woman walks out and he says, "This is my girlfriend, Matilda." Tiffany is stunned. Ignoring all of this, Tiffany's mom breaks it down. There's a lot of work ahead for the snowball. Everyone's going to have to chip in. For example, the first thing up is they need to handwrite all of the invitations. Thankfully, Matilda has perfect penmanship and has offered to help. But there's still a lot of envelopes to go, and they get set to work. So who's helping write these envelopes? It's Matilda, who has perfect penmanship, of course. And this is set up to make Tiffany feel a little awkward about her own penmanship or her own abilities. Then there's Brett, who's helping out. Then there's Tiffany and Tiffany's sister, Camille. They're all working on the envelopes. As they work, Tiffany dives in on questions. For example, how did they meet? They were both stationed at the same orphanage. We jump ahead to game night where everybody's having fun, but then somebody gives a salutation, a toast to Matilda joining the family group, and we see Tiffany is not happy about this. We cut to Tiffany at a bar unloading her story to the bartender. The bartender asks, what can you do about it? Tiffany thinks and says, "I need to break them up." Somebody nearby laughs, and it's Peter from the beginning of the movie, from the bus station. He apologizes for laughing because he's run into a similar situation. Turns out he came there to win back his ex, but found out she's with a new guy too. They go back and forth about who has it worse, but then Tiffany says it's not too late for them. We need to break up our respective exes. He asks how, she's not sure, but then she strikes on it. We need to make them jealous. We could pretend to be a couple and totally make them jealous. After some convincing, Peter is in. Cut to the next day, Peter arrives at the cabin. Tiffany meets him outside. He mentions getting cold feet. Tiffany says, "We can't get cold feet now. True love is on the line." And then Tiffany's mom comes out to see what the noise is. She asks who Peter is. Tiffany chokes on the word, so Peter jumps in. He is her boyfriend. Her mom is shocked. "Why didn't you say anything? What a pleasant surprise." We've been waiting so long for one of our girls to bring a boy home. She quickly invites Peter in. Inside, she goes on about how he must be special because not just anyone can join their family Christmas crew. Then Brett walks in and gets introduced. He's very nonplussed. "Oh, that's great," he says. Then the mom asks him to stay there for Christmas. He starts to say no, but then gets pushed into staying at the house for Christmas. He brought no luggage, but I guess he does have luggage because he was on that bus. Because he was visiting his ex. So I guess he has luggage. Plus, they can always use more help for the snowball. Cut to Tiffany and Peter at a tree decorating contest. It's a snowy field. It's in a snowy field with Christmas trees spread out across it. Then you sign up and each team decorates a different tree and then the winner wins something. They're there because Tiffany is certain Peter's ex will be there. Her family is a big deal in town and try to participate in lots of town events. They immediately run into Peter's ex. Her name is Lorraine. Tiffany is very surprised to see Lorraine is very surprised to see Peter in town because, well, he knows she's there for Christmas. Why is he there? And he says, "Well, I'm here because my girlfriend's here." And she goes, "Oh, you're dating Tiffany?" And he's like, "Yeah." She doesn't truly believe it, though. She seems super suspicious. Then Tiffany's sister comes up and has to play along without knowing why. That she comes up and says, like, "Hey, guys, what's going on?" And Tiffany's like, "Oh, nothing, just introducing Lorraine to my new boyfriend." Apparently they know each other. And the sister has to play along without truly understanding knowing what's going on. After Peter's ex leaves, she demands to know what's going on. Tiffany explains their plan. Okay, so this is when the subplot that I'm not going to deal a lot with, but I am going to tell you about it now. So the bartender is there helping run the contest. Now, why is the bartender from the bar there? Well, that's because there's going to be a subplot where the bartender and Tiffany's sister Camille fall for each other, and they end up becoming a couple by the end of the movie. And it's fine. It's in the background, and it's totally adorable. But the movie doesn't really address it head on, so you get like pieces and pieces, and that's fine, but it's not good for notes. So I'm just going to tell you right now what's going to happen. So I also thought it was interesting because they had the mom say that she's been waiting forever for one of her daughters to bring a boy home, and as soon as she said that, I thought the other daughter is going to end up being gay. And sure enough, the other daughter ends up being gay, and she's in a relationship by the end of the movie with the bartender. Everything is going well with the Christmas tree decorating, but then Peter's ex, her boyfriend, her new boyfriend, hurts himself. I don't know if he fell off the tree or if he fell off a ladder or whatever. He gets hurt. Out of nowhere, Matilda shows up, and that's Matilda is Brett's girlfriend. Matilda shows up and helps out the guy with his arm. He's hurt his arm. And even fashions her scarf into a sling. Peter is really impressed. Now, that's the kind of person you want around in an emergency, he says. Tiffany makes a face, of course, because she is dating the guy that she wants to date. Cut to the group I'm sorry if the notes are confusing. I'm doing my best here. Cut to the group arriving back at the house. Matilda and Brett got first place in the tree decorating contest. Then Tiffany and Peter go up, and she goes up to her room, and she lays out the sleeping arrangements. Peter can use her bed, and she'll bunk with her sister since her sister knows what's going on. They find out they have the same color, blue, and favorite food, Indian, and they act like, oh my God, what are the odds of that? So, look, you know where this is going. Eventually, Peter and what's her name, Tiffany, are going to end up together, right? You get that. But for some reason, the movie feels the need to prove to us that they belong together. So they sprinkle out throughout the movie these bits where it's like, wait a second, your favorite color is blue? Wait a second, your favorite food is Indian? Maybe we're not so dissimilar after all. It's like in the last movie, Love in the Time of a Chocolate Shop, or whatever the fuck it was called, when they had them both mention that they both like dark chocolate. Oh, my favorite chocolate is dark chocolate. My favorite chocolate is dark chocolate. Oh my God, what are the odds? I don't know, 1 in 3, 1 in 4? Anyway, while they're up in her room, Peter asks Tiffany what happened with Brett. She goes off on a long tale starting, and this is basically what I explained earlier, how they were friends, and then eventually he confessed he had feelings for her, but she didn't reciprocate, and then they lost touch. Peter is shocked. Wait, you never even dated him? She says that's not the point. She gets defensive and asks him why he's not with Lorraine anymore. He says, well, I have an issue opening up. He says he always dives into his work, but now he's ready to focus on his relationships, and that's what he's there to do. In a sincere moment, she says that sounds really mature, and he thanks her for saying so. Cut to folks sitting around the fireplace. Most of the group are pulling out ornaments and untangling lights. Tiffany is trying to sketch, but having a hard time of it. She keeps throwing her drawings into the fireplace. Eventually, it's time to decorate a special ornament where Brett and Tiffany each put the ornament on while holding hands. Like, they each put one hand on the ornament and they hang it together. I don't know. It's a tradition with them. Tiffany is really moved by doing this with Brett this year. Apparently, it's the first time in many years that they've done this ornament tradition. Now it's time for karaoke over at the bar, but first the groups decide to make a game out of delivering the invitations. So they're going to walk to the bar, and on the way, they're going to divide into groups to deliver invitations. As they deliver invitations, Tiffany tells Brett about the different townsfolk, like, oh, we're delivering this invitation to Helen McGonigal. Helen McGonigal was the first whatever, blah, blah, blah. So that's what they do as they deliver invitations. When they get to the bar, Tiffany is very pouty. Then there's a moment where Camille pulls Tiffany aside and tells her to lighten up. Remember, Camille is Tiffany's sister. She says there's no way Brett's going to be interested in you with that sort of attitude. Plus, maybe you should just give Matilda a chance. She's a really nice person. Tiffany says okay, but then gets distracted by something. Peter's ex has arrived. She invites Peter's ex over to join the table. Everyone finds out Peter used to date her and how this is all some sort of weird coincidence because he's not from this town and neither is she. She just happens to be in town for the holidays. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. Peter's ex starts grilling Peter and Tiffany, asking how they met. They tell the story about the swapped luggage, so that's actually true. And then asking what Tiffany does for a living, Peter doesn't know, which is mind-blowing that it hasn't come up in their conversation over the last couple of days. But notes that she is a great artist. Brett then jumps in to unknowingly rescue Peter and saying, yeah, I was shocked that Tiffany, who is an amazing artist, chose to accounting over art as her career. This lets Brett be able to act like he knows what she does for a living. Oh yeah, she's an accountant. Now it's time for Peter and Tiffany to sing karaoke. They sing We Wish You a Merry Christmas. They are both bad, but everyone gets into it and has a good time. At the end of the night, Peter's ex, Lorraine, stops him to say that he seems like he's really grown a lot. She's impressed with his growth, with his maturity. He then invites her over the next day to join the group in making gingerbread houses. Lorraine will be there, and she's definitely into him again. Back at the house to help out Tiffany's mom, Peter offers to help make toffee. They talk about life and such. He asks why Tiffany does accounting. Tiffany's not sure, maybe because it's safe and stable. It's also what she knew. Both of her parents are accountants. He asks why she doesn't do art, though. She says, well, art is just personal. That's just for me. It's not my job. He says that he's passionate about plants and that's why he's a florist. This came up at the bar, but I forgot to note it. Eventually, they both admit they're having a really good time hanging out. The next day, Peter's ex arrives. It's time for gingerbread houses. Peter and his ex team up, and then Brett and Matilda also team up. When Tiffany comes down, she sees the duos hard at work on the gingerbread houses and decides to use this time to snoop around in Brett's bag in his room. She finds an engagement ring. She starts to tear up, but then tries the engagement ring on, and wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you goddamn know it, but the engagement ring gets stuck on her finger. Back downstairs, Brett whispers off to the side to Matilda that he thinks it's suspicious Peter invited his ex Lorraine over. Goddamn, this is too many names. I am so sorry. Matilda is sure that it's nothing that Brett invited his ex over for helping out with the gingerbread houses. But he's not so sure, so he yells for Tiffany to join them downstairs. Tiffany tries on mittens to kind of cover her hands, and then she heads down just long enough to tell Peter that he needs to join her in the other room. She shows him her conundrum with the ring stuck on her finger, and they set about trying to get the ring off of her finger. Eventually, he gets an idea to take her outside and dunk her hand in snow, which should make her hand shrink. This works. The ring comes off. Unfortunately, Tiffany's mom saw this happen from the inside of the house and thinks that he's just proposed to her. She screams in excitement. As Tiffany and Peter head back inside, they're confronted by the whole group now thinking they are engaged. Tiffany's mom asks to see the ring, but Tiffany pretends that it actually doesn't fit and she doesn't have it on, and it's bad luck if you show off a ring doesn't fit, or if you're not wearing it yet. I forget how she explains it. You get the gist though. Inside, Peter talks to Tiffany and says this has gone on too far. Tiffany says, no, this actually might work out. Did you notice how jealous your ex looked when we said that when they thought we were engaged? Plus, now Brett won't want to pop the question, because that's how they found out he had an engagement ring. He's not going to want to pop the question to his girlfriend. That would be, what the fuck's her name? It doesn't matter. It'll come up again. Matilda, that's right. She's not going to want to pop the question because somebody else is already doing it. It'll get overshadowed, not shattered. Anyway, Peter comes back around to the idea that this whole plan might just be working. Next up, they head out to find a replacement ring for her to wear. Since now she's supposed to be engaged, she's going to have to wear a ring because presumably Peter would have proposed with one. Before they make it out the door, Tiffany's mom gives them a bunch of tasks to do, including picking up decorations for the big snowball, as well as representing the family at some Yule log ceremony. They start to leave again when Tiffany's dad asks to talk to Peter for a second. He jokes about wanting to be asked for his blessing in the marriage, but then gets serious and says that Peter seems like a good guy, and he's happy for them to be engaged. Later, Peter admits that he doesn't like lying to everyone, especially Tiffany's parents, because they seem like nice people. Tiffany agrees, but says, but everyone will be happy in the end. They just need to focus on what we want. You still want to be with your ex, right? Peter's like, yeah, sure. They go to a vintage store to look for decorations. We get a shopping montage. During the trip, they talk about Christmas traditions. Peter says he doesn't really have any, but before he can talk more about it, Tiffany's mom calls. Later, Peter goes to check out at the store. We're still at the store. He checks out at the store, but then he sees something on the inside of the counter that he wants to buy. He asks to see it, and it's a ring. He looks over at Tiffany on the phone and smiles. He tells the guy that he wants that ring. Now it's time for the Yule log ceremony. They have to pick out a log, write their intentions on the log, and then burn the log. Tiffany writes out a bunch of symbols on her log, each representing members of her family and Brett. and a heart for Peter, and the heart is for him to find love with his ex. Peter's a bit disappointed when she adds this last bit, but then draws his own symbol for her on the log, a paintbrush, because she's an artist and he wants her to continue her art. Anyway, they eventually burn the log. After he burns the log, he produces the ring that he got for Tiffany. She pauses when she sees it. It's perfect, she says. He gets down on one knee and pretends to propose to her. It's just more for fun, not like anybody's watching them. But then this proposal seems to get a little too real for Tiffany and Peter. Talk turns to decorations for the ball. He has an idea. He's a florist and he can help make homemade wreaths and garland. Cut to them collecting components for the wreaths and garland in the woods. Peter talks about his love for nature and plants. He asked how he got into plants. When he was 15, his dad died. His mom struggled financially, so he got a job at a florist. The guy running it made him his apprentice, and Peter loved it. Eventually, he left the plant life behind and jumped into the business world, but found it wasn't satisfying. Just when he was at his lowest, he ran into the guy from the flower shop again. He decided to buy the flower shop and has been running it ever since. Tiffany is really touched by this story. It makes her think about her art and whether she needs to reconsider her life. He encourages her to do so. They share a moment. Cut to Peter making wreaths while Tiffany designs the ball's banner. But then she starts sketching Peter without him knowing. He suspects something is up and asks to see it. They start playing keep away and it's all adorable and shit. Later that night, Tiffany can't sleep and goes downstairs to find Brett, also up. Remember, Tiffany wants to be in a relationship with Brett, and Brett already is in a relationship with Matilda. Tiffany and Brett start chatting. He says he misses when they could just chat like this. And she says, do you miss this, like hanging out at your home for Christmas, or do you miss this, talking to her? And he says both. He starts talking about their youth and how he never thought he'd get over her. But then he met Matilda. He was even nervous when he came back for the first time with Matilda, nervous because he was worried those feelings might come back. Thankfully, Tiffany was in a relationship, and that made it a lot easier for him. Tiffany suffers through that moment, knowing that she may have caused her own demise. If she hadn't pretended to be in a relationship, he might have expressed some sort of feelings for her. And she says she's glad that he's back, and she hopes that they never go years without talking again. While she says this, Matilda starts to walk in, but listens instead. The next morning, Tiffany wakes up Peter and says that they need to break up. Brett told her if she was single, he'd still love her. Peter says, wait, did he say that if you were still single, he'd love you? And she says, yeah, more or less, pretty much that, which is not true. Peter does not seem happy about this breakup command. They head downstairs and are surprised by a huge crowd of people there to celebrate their engagement. Uh-oh. Tiffany suffers through these congratulations after congratulations, but then a surprise entrant appears. That's Peter's ex, Lorraine. She's there to tell Peter that she broke up with her boyfriend. They just weren't compatible. Plus, seeing Peter with Tiffany, she trails off and says, wait, no, never mind. Now's not the time to talk about it. She heads into the party. Why is she there? I know she's there to talk to Peter because she wants him back. But why is she going to the party portion of this thing? Anyway, Brett watches with a suspicious eye. Brett is watching because Brett thinks that Peter is cheating on Tiffany. And since he's Tiffany's pal, he wants to protect her. So that's why he's being suspicious. Later, we get a moment with Peter and Tiffany's dad. He's so happy Tiffany is with such a good guy like Peter. He's always wanted a son. Peter gets emotional and says that his dad died when he was young, so it's been a long time since he had a father figure. Tiffany's dad gives him a big hug. Tiffany comes in and says that she needs to talk to Peter. She says he's making this worse. Everyone is falling in love with him. You can't make everybody fall in love with you. It's going to be worse when we break up. Peter says, yeah, that may be the case, but we're trying to break up a perfectly happy couple in Matilda and Brett. She says, okay, yeah, fine. It's easy for you to say that you don't want to break them up. That's because your ex is already broken up and she's obviously into you. But what they need to focus on is the fact that Brett is going to propose to Matilda unless we break up immediately and I'm available. Peter replies that he doesn't know what he wants anymore. She says, wait, does this mean what? You want to stay fake engaged forever? He says what he means is that she's not considering how this affects anyone else. Doesn't she want Brett to be happy? Tiffany tells him to stop. Brett comes in and assumes they're arguing. Is it about Peter's ex being there? Tiffany sees an opening and says, yeah, that's exactly why. I'm mad that Lorraine's here. And I've had enough. And she gives Peter back the engagement ring and storms off. Cut to Tiffany at the bar talking to her sister. She says, I'm not sure what I was thinking. Am I a monster? Her sister says, no, she's just a romantic. No. Tiffany, you are a monster. But while they're there, she says she's been talking to the bartender about things, and the bartender thinks that Peter and Tiffany might end up together. What does Tiffany think? Tiffany gets all weirdly defensive. No way, of course not. I don't even know him that well. The bartender goes through the, quote, rom-com compatibility chart. Does he make you laugh? Yes. Do your differences complement each other? Yes. Does he challenge you to become a better version of yourself? Tiffany pauses. Yes. Tiffany is now thrown off. Maybe it's true? Maybe they should end up together? She doesn't know what to do now. They tell her to go find Peter and tell him what she feels. She heads home, but no one is there but Matilda. She finds out everyone is off setting up the snowball. Is Peter with them? No, he left with his ex. Tiffany is surprised. Really? Matilda says, look, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but yes, that's who he left with. Tiffany plays it off and starts to leave. Matilda stops her and tells her, look, I know how much you mean to Brett, and he means a lot to me, so I hope that we can be friends. Tiffany assures her, yes, we can be friends. Plus that whole phase where Brett confessed his love to me, that was a long time ago. That was in the past. And Matilda reacts as if she didn't know that happened. Cut to Peter and his ex Lorraine on a walk. She wants him to join her family for Christmas, but he just wants to go home. He has his luggage with him. She keeps pushing and pushing, saying how he's grown so much, but he's not into it. He says, look, Tiffany made me feel like I was okay the way I was. You want me to be different than I was. She says, look, if that's how she made you feel, you need to go after her. Over to the snowball preparation, Brett makes his move. He does the big build-up and boom, he proposes to Matilda. Matilda tears up and says, I can't. Why? She looks over at Tiffany and runs away. Cut to Brett and Tiffany sitting together. He's so confused. Wait, why did this happen? Tiffany says she might have had something to do with it. Instead of just saying that she mentioned how he used to be into Tiffany, she unspools the whole story about the whole thing, how the whole relationship with Peter was fake, because she assumed that Brett was going to be into her, and she, once she found out he was in a relationship, she wanted to make him jealous. Brett doesn't know what to do with any of this, so then says, "Wait, do you love me now?" And she says, "No, well, yes, but not like that." Brett's happy to hear that. He says, "I'm surprised there's nothing between you and Peter. I sensed sparks between you two." Tiffany says, "Yeah, well, it turns out I do have feelings for him." He says, "Well, you need to go after him." She says, "Yes, but didn't he leave with his ex?" Cut to Brett at the train station. He opens his luggage to find out he accidentally took Tiffany's luggage. But inside, he finds her sketchbook and finds the drawing that she did of him that one time when he didn't know she was drawing him. Somehow, for some reason, this causes him to believe that she loves him. And he rushes to the snowball. When he arrives, he pulls Tiffany aside. He's not with his ex. He says, "I'm not with Lorraine. I have feelings for you. I'm into you." Tiffany is surprised, but happy. She also has feelings for Peter. Shit, I said Brett earlier. Cut to Peter at the train station. Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, Matilda storms in and gets right in Tiffany's face. She says, "I'm not going to let you stand in the way of what Brett and I have." She then Tiffany makes it clear that she doesn't want to do this. She wants to be with Peter. Matilda is happy to hear this and goes over to Brett. She says, "I'm sorry, I said no earlier." Then she drops to one knee and proposes to him. Will he marry her? He says yes. Cut to Peter and Tiffany talking about the future between them. She mentions that she's been thinking about going to art school. He points out that they have one in the same city as his florist shop. And she says, "Oh, isn't that a coincidence?" Then she notices a second coincidence. They're standing under the mistletoe. They kiss. The end. I think that I did a terrible job with this podcast. There were simply too many characters that I kept naming. So I'm really sorry about that. If you had a bad time in this podcast, I apologize. But at least we're done with episode 50. Only 10 more to go. Thanks for listening. Oh, MVP. We're going to go with Peter for this one. No. I'm going to go with Camille, the sister who ends up in a relationship with the bartender. I thought she was a lot of fun. She was a voice of reason. And so, Camille, you're the MVP of this movie. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you again next time. And until then, my friends, I need you to promise to take care. Goodbye.